Hello, everybody. My name's David Rose. I am a principal at AWS, where I specialize in Gen AI and analytics in general. Happy to have you returning here to a series called This Is My Offer, where we talk to some of our great partners and learn a little bit more about kind of what they're doing, their unique differentiators and skills, and how they work with AWS services to really make transformation happen with their clients. Super happy to be here today. This is one of my favorite things to do, and I'm looking forward to diving in. And with that, let me introduce Zeev from OpenLegacy.
Hey everybody, hey David. Zeev Avidan, I'm a Chief Product Officer for OpenLegacy, and I've been with OpenLegacy from the get-go, 10 years now. So part of the founding team, and it's been a ride, as they say.
I bet. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about OpenLegacy and the Hub solution, which I know we're going to dive a little bit deeper in?
Sure, absolutely. So the OpenLegacy Hub is basically a platform for legacy integration and modernization. So when things starts to move around, in the context of modernization, basically connections break. OpenLegacy is there to reconnect them. So what we do is three main things: generate, extend, and manage. Generate means that you can take legacy assets, transactions, programs, procedures, all kinds of different legacy assets, and basically automatically generate digital services around them. And these could be serverless, this could be microservices, the interfaces could be RESTful APIs, Kafka-based APIs, a lot of different things. Just automatically, very fast, without legacy skills, generate those services for them so you can interact with them, but also extend them, so add additional business functionality. This could be a lot of business functionality, really business logic. This could be, integration logic, as we call it, but really make those more simple to consume further down the line. So you contain complexity, which is really important. And third, you can also manage those assets. So basically understand how you're using your legacy in that context of your digital usage. So reuse, search, find, and do a little bit of impact analysis also. This changes on my mainframe, then it changes this on my cloud deployment. So generate, extend, and manage. These are the three things that the platform does.
Great. So one of the industries that I've worked in for quite a long time, and I know faces some of the challenges that you mentioned, would be financial services. For example, banking, insurance companies, capital markets firms, payments firms, etc. We know that the data challenges in that world are fairly robust. Can you talk a bit about kind of how you work with financial services firms?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so financial services, banking, insurance, these are, I would say, the majority of our customers for sure. Simple reason is that's where a lot of the legacy is, right? These are industries that are highly regulated. They do have a need for, there's a reason why they turn to legacy systems. They have a need for a lot of processing power. And they're not necessarily the most fast-moving, in the world, but definitely they use us a lot. So most of our customers are, in fact, financial services, banking, and insurance. And I would say that for them, I mean, first of all, the need to move away from the legacy in a way that's very risk-averse, even, I would say. They cannot take a lot of risk. So when they decide to move a system or an application from the mainframe to the cloud, or from any kind of legacy to the cloud, that needs to be done in a very gradual way, which we help them support that pattern. So coexistence becomes really important. Definitely they use us for that specific pattern, but also just generally the need for things like transactional integration. So knowing that when you make changes in different places, those changes happen at the same time, becomes really important. So there are all kinds of patterns that I wouldn't say they are unique to financial services, but definitely they're more prevalent in financial services that we do support. In addition to that, regulation and compliance are extremely important in those type of scenarios. That's where basically we build our platform to accommodate those things. So in terms of data residency, not persisting data where we shouldn't, all of those kinds of things are really important. In addition to that, one last thing that I would mention is that there are specific standards that are becoming more and more important around open banking and now open insurance even, that we support as kind of out of the box standards. So we have something called the Solution Center. So that's basically kind of like a marketplace, not really a marketplace because you don't buy it, but that's where you can find it. All kinds of contracts and interfaces that you can apply that are open banking or open insurance that you can just apply to your existing systems. So that's how you can basically very quickly generate those type of services and be compliant with those standards. So yeah, in all of these kind of multiple ways, we support basically our biggest market, which is financial services.
Yeah. Great. No, that's wonderful to hear because, as you mentioned a little bit, financial services firms face, a lot of data challenges. They have to do with traceability of data, particularly data that goes into any kind of credit models or lending models. And, similar things apply to insurance with insurance companies having to kind of show the data lineage, make sure that the variables in their models aren't discriminatory, et cetera. Right. So I think that the data challenge in financial services, as you kind of said, is quite immense with lots of different kind of dimensions to it. So we talked about the OpenLegacy Hub a little bit. You mentioned it in the beginning. Can we take a deep dive into that? And like, how does it work? And how does it help solve some of these challenges that you mentioned?
Sure, absolutely. So I think one of the things that immediately you have to know when you start dealing with those type of legacy systems, and specifically with financial services, is that it's really hard to think of it as kind of a plain vanilla type thing. Every site, every customer is completely customized. Even if they share a core banking system, for example, they will have very, very different flavors of that core banking system. So immediately, one of the first things that's unique about the OpenLegacy platform is that we are a design time platform, meaning it's kind of like a little factory for those integrations. We don't assume anything with regards to what the customer have. So it's a design time platform. It builds services that can then be deployed in very flexible ways. So for example, you can have a mainframe core banking system, and all we need is metadata. We feed it to the platform, and the platform generates, for example, that would be Java, microservices or JavaScript serverless functions, whatever you want it to be, that can then be deployed to, the AWS cloud or to, Lambda functions, in a serverless way. So that's kind of the core of the platform. Very, very flexible. It consumes metadata and it generates at design time those services that can then run independently wherever you want them to run, on private cloud, public cloud, wherever, even your own premises if that's what's needed, but can then run very flexibly and independently from the platform. So the hub is not part of your runtime environment. It does not pollute your runtime environment. It's just the thing that generates those services that can then be deployed independently.
Oh, great. That's a fantastic walkthrough of that. I'm curious, can you share with us, without mentioning, customer names and, anything confidential, but I'd love to hear, have you walk through a case study and how this works in financial services.
Sure, absolutely. So one example would be a very large insurance company from the UK, without being too specific. But they have a pretty significant mainframe footprint, and they wanted to modernize. Now, eventually, they're looking at moving everything away from the mainframe, but they know that's going to be a pretty significant, heavy lifting. So initially, what they want to do is expose those services coming from their legacy in various ways, because they want to build their target architecture first and migrate to it, when it makes sense. And that's a very sensible approach, and we see that across the board. So One thing that was very important for them was having that flexibility of deploying in different ways, because they wanted to experiment with kind of different target environments, and perhaps work in a hybrid way, because different environments would work for different needs. So what they use the platform for is basically conversing with their mainframe, but
Mhm.
deploying both as OpenShift on AWS, Java-based microservices, and Lambda serverless. And they do both. And sometimes it's kind of the exact same service that's just being leveraged in two different ways. That saves them tons of work. So in that way, the platform was perfect for them because of the flexibility of the deployment. So that was very important for them. And now they're able to incorporate their mainframe workloads into all of the modern things and the new things that they're doing. So that's kind of a very classic use case, a
Mhm.
very standard way of using the
Yeah.
platform. Um, so that's one example. Another example I would say would be with the customer that what they really were interested in, they were migrating a core banking system from the mainframe to the cloud. And the challenge for them was that a lot of the programs that used to co-locate on the mainframe, now
Yeah.
you move one program to the cloud. Now you have a mainframe program that can't converse with that program anymore. And the challenge for them, they didn't want to, build an entirely new tech stack on their mainframe to converse with an API, because COBOL, back in the 80s and 70s didn't really know what an API is.
Correct.
So they didn't want to teach their COBOL developers to talk with an API. So that was a very simple thing to fix. Basically, they used the OpenLegacy platform, what we call the API caller, as a pattern of enabling COBOL programs to talk with modern day APIs. So that customer was able to do that. So again, gradually migrating workloads away from the mainframe into the cloud, while still keeping the workloads on the mainframe very, working
Mhm.
and productive. So reducing risk, which is incredibly important in those type of projects, reducing the risks and reducing the need for, developing and adding more technical debt on the legacy side. So these are two,
Yeah.
types of usage.
Yeah. Those are fantastic examples. And you mentioned a few AWS services as you were going through the examples. For example, you mentioned Lambda and a few others. Which AWS services do you find yourselves kind of working with the most?
So, I mean, we are very much well integrated with AWS ecosystem. You can buy OpenLegacy, transact on the marketplace. You can deploy us, of course, in the different AWS deployment options. And you can use the different AWS resources together with an OpenLegacy service. As I mentioned, we can be deployed in various ways. So Java, JavaScript, Python, .NET, and on different environments. I would say that one thing that becomes more interesting right now,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of interest, is kind of the AI stack,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you're more than familiar with. But now a lot of use cases, I would say that a lot of customers are at least AI curious at this
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we're exploring is this ability to basically have an AI talk directly with your legacy systems.
Mm.
That becomes really interesting, because AI is where you want to go in a lot of cases, but legacy is where a lot of your data is.
Yeah.
So combining the two basically constitutes a very interesting use case right now. So I would say it's still early days, but a lot of potentially a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I could see the benefits that that kind of opens up to folks. How when companies work with you, kind of what can they expect in terms of implementation time, ROI? I know it's hard to generalize because even as you mentioned, right, even in banking, there's two or three main cores, but really 14 or 15 flavors. I mean, there's just a lot of complexity in there. So, how much time would it take to kind of um, uh, to work with you all? And can you talk about the benefits that customers see in terms of any kind of ROI estimates, etc.?
Sure, no, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key benefits, I would say, of working with a platform like OpenLegacy. So first of all, the implementation and installation phase is relatively very, very easy.
Okay.
There's not a lot of legacy skills needed. It's a digital platform designed for digital folks. It's not a mainframe product, not a legacy product. We do support different kind of legacy systems. So,
Yeah.
IBM mainframe and S400 and other systems like Oracle, older
Mhm.
legacy Oracle versions and SAP versions. But you don't need to be an expert in any of them. Basically, what you need is to set up a platform on the cloud, so it's very
Okay.
easy to do. I would
Okay.
say that usually installation and initial setup, including setting up the first APIs and getting everything in order for you to be able to, get to an API within minutes. That initial setup is a couple of weeks, I would say,
Okay.
usually.
Okay.
And then it's off to the races. You can have metadata brought into the platform and get a digital service set up and deployed within minutes. Now, some implementations are more complex than others, especially if you want to automate the deployment process. But it really moves at the speed of what you do digitally, not at the speed of what you do on the legacy side. So that's in terms of the speed to set it up. In
Okay.
terms of the benefits you're getting, that's really all about speed and cost, and the ease of use. So
Yeah.
instead of going through multiple iterations with your legacy folks, investing their most valuable skills and then doing things like that, you can
Mhm.
spin up a new integration into your legacy within minutes and
Wow.
deploy it, again within minutes. The cost drops dramatically. We have customers that move from 6 months to deploy a digital service from their mainframe to basically less than a day.
Wow.
Um,
Incredible.
and these are really very viable results that you can get. So if you're spending any time on legacy integrations, you might want to check this out, because you can really reduce the cost and time here pretty dramatically,
Yeah. Sounds.
and also reduce the risk and making it much more simple.
Yeah. No, that sounds fantastic. I could really understand and appreciate the benefits that you mentioned. Having worked in that industry for a while. So what's next with the Open Legacy Hub? New features? Any developments?
No, absolutely. So we have a very exciting roadmap ahead of us, and some of it we've already started implementing and deployed, and some of it, of course, is work in progress. But I think we're kind of really embracing, as a lot in the industry are, generative AI and
Yep.
what it can do. So right now we do have AI capabilities
Mhm.
around being able to do auto mapping, being able to do generate code. So we have this thing called expressions, which are basically pieces of code that you can add
Okay.
to an API. Sorry. And you can automatically generate those pieces of code. So really a very novice, not even a developer can create those integrations. So these are capabilities that already exist on the platform, but we're doubling down on them, adding more productivity features. So that's one track. But the other
Okay.
track is even more exciting, because we have this concept of what we call the AI-friendly API, which is basically being able to generate APIs that are very easily consumable by an AI agent. We think that AI agents are going to be very important when automating integrations into legacy. And right now, when you create an API from a legacy system, usually it's a very complex, it's not the most easy to use, and that confuses AIs. So even though there are going to be more and more sophisticated AI models, we think that a big part of enabling AI to use those type of data from legacy and operations on the legacy is going to be around making APIs that are very consumable, very understandable by AI. So to make that simpler, and that's definitely a direction we're going at, making those APIs very documented,
Yeah.
simplified, easy to use, easy to understand, fitting standards that you would expect. So to make AI basically experts on your mainframe
Mhm.
legacy systems without you needing to teach them your legacy system.
So, Zev, thank you so much for walking through all of the offerings from OpenLegacy. I think that you've laid out a fantastic kind of example of how companies can benefit and kind of what they can expect. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about if somebody wanted to find out more about OpenLegacy and OpenLegacy Hub, where would they go?
Sure, no, absolutely. So if you're interested in any of the things we talked about, using AI to converse directly with your legacy system, or if you have integration needs, because you're working hybrid, or if you are in a modernization project and you wanted to find out more about coexistence and how we can help there, then you can reach us directly at www.openlegacy.com, obviously,
Okay.
but also we're available on the AWS Marketplace. So you can transact through there. So in all of those different channels, you can reach either OpenLegacy or Amazon.
Well, thank you, Zev. This has been really, really interesting. I encourage people to check out openlegacy.com to learn more about the solutions that we described today. And there will be links to additional resources in the description. So I encourage people to check out those links as well. And that's it for This Is My Offer.